Alright guys, this is my spectral shield throw, and I believe I found a way to make this skill work correctly. Now I don't actually think this skill is a bad skill, I just think most people haven't found the right way to build it. In the same way that Molten Strike isn't a bad skill. On its own, it's terrible, but when you build it correctly, good. I think it's the same with this one, and that most people are trying to build it into the type of projectile skill that it is not. So let's start off with gear. That's not gear. This is gear. So, key parts of this build is going to be shield, obviously. You gotta have something to throw with shield throw. You don't need one as good as this. I only have this because I managed to craft it the other day, but anything over 2,000 armor should be fine. That doesn't cost too much. Important stats on this is really just the armor. Res and life are sort of a benefit. If you have open slots, craft either res or life, whichever you need more. For the helmet, this is very important that you have spectral shield throw, fires 5 additional shard projectiles. Think of this skill like frost blades or molten strike in that when the shield explodes, that's quite a lot of your damage. And we'll get into that more later, but Steranka's head, probably the easiest thing to get this on. Most lab runners enchant Steranka's heads or rat's nest, things like that. You can use a rare helmet if you have the enchantment yourself or if you find a cheap one. But Starkania's is generally good. All the stats are useful for us, so why not? For the main hands, Shaper stat stick. Fizz is extra cold damage is the important thing here. Getting another type of extra damage, good. Ellie pen, good. Craft wet if you can. Other than that, you should be good with just about any stat stick. Gloves, Rimburn or Hrim Sorrow. Either one. We need the 50% fizz to cold conversion, because we're going 90% total cold conversion. Rimburns, it's not going to matter which ones you take, because we're using Ellie Focus, so the cold damage can ignite is not something we're going to get. Just grab whichever set of these gloves you can get the 4 off colors on, or craft them yourself with Verici. It's not too difficult. For the belt, we're going with the Nomad. Massive amount of projectile damage, good all res, and the flash charge definitely help. You do lose out on some life with this, but it's not too big of a deal because we have a lot of defenses. We do have under 6k life, but you're not really going to die to anything with this build. We'll get into that in a bit. Boots, pretty much any evasion boots with life and res, get as high as you can. For the enchant on these, you're going to want... This is a rather mediocre enchant, but ideally you want either the life regen or Ellie pen. It's not too big of a deal, like this isn't a key part of the build, but if you're farming lab, just aim for one of those two. Gloves, it's not, again, not too big of a deal. We can't go with Ellie pen for corruption because we have enfeeble on cast 1 damage taken, so don't worry about that. Just grab pretty much whatever and you're good to go. Now, for the armor, we're using Feral's Fur. Now, I know this is a sort of expensive armor, but it doesn't necessarily need to be 6 links. We don't get all that much extra damage from Maim, so you'd be fine with 5 link. But Feral's Fur is quite important. It gives us free aspect of the cat, and the reason aspect of the cat is important, especially with these frenzy and power charges, is because we're taking Ellie overload. So we don't need to worry about base crit or having too much attack speed. We pretty much always have Ellie overload with 3 power charges. And the frenzy charges are a massive amount of damage as well. Not to mention it has an added benefit of... where is this? 15% chance to avoid all damage when you're in Cat's Stealth, which is quite nice. For flasks, we're going to want a Series Promise, Taste of Hate, Wise Oak, and Kiara's Determination as a get out of jail card, since we don't have Chaos Roots or any real stun immunity. For the last flask, you can take pretty much anything you want, just as long as it has removes bleeding. That's the important thing here. I have a life flask, so that's just what I had laying around, and I haven't bothered replacing it. Quicksilver flask should also be solid here, or ruby flask. Just take your pick, whatever you're lacking the most of. Now for links, the main hands, well, actually it doesn't matter if it's main hand or offhand, but for 3 links, we're going to have Valgrace, Ancestral Protector, and Increased Duration. These are mainly going to be useful for bosses. You don't need this, the extra evasion or damage on any other mob, really. For your other 3 link, this is going to be your movement skill. You're going to want shield charge, faster attacks, and fortify. Now for, well, I guess this is also a 3-link, but we take enlightened supports, Herald of Ash, and hatred. Hatred, obviously, we're cold build, so cold damage, good. Herald of Ash is amazing for the added clear speed. And then I just have a portal here where you can slot pretty much anything here. If for some reason you have a Val Breach, forget the damage rings and go for 2 breach rings. That'd be pretty OP. But on rings, we're basically just going to have LE damage. You could go for some accuracy, some cold damage, or some flat damage. LE damage is the most important here. Even attack speed, but attack speed's kind of rare. So that's basically what you're going to want in your rings. Grab, you're going to want life and res on those. We do have a lot of uniques, so resistance are going to be a bit of an issue, but we'll get to that. For the amulets, pretty much any shaped amulet with Fizz as extra cold damage is going to be a huge amount of damage for this build. So just aim for resistances and life on this. Let's see here. Cast when damage taken, we're going to have 2 of these. We take Immortal Call and Enfeeble with increased duration on this one. For the second cast when damage taken, we're having an Ice Golem because I haven't gotten 4 off colors on this yet. But ideally you want a Lightning Golem here for the attack speed. Frost Bomb. This is mainly useful for red beast mobs, essence mobs, and bosses. It's something you're not really going to worry too much about. It'll give you a nice minus 20 cold resist on the enemies whenever you get hit. And Tempest Shield. And the reason we take Tempest Shield is for the additional 3% block chance. That's really it. There's not much else we could slot in here anyway, so grab one of those. Level on these doesn't matter too much because we're taking level 1 cast when damage taken. And for our main skill, Shield Throw, we're going to have LE Focus, physical projectile attack damage, damage on full life, and elemental damage with attacks. If you have a 6-link, take main for your last one. Now for our skill tree, or ascendancies first, I guess. The most important thing here is Gathering Winds. We're playing Deadeye, so if you don't have Gathering Winds, don't really know what you're doing. And then we are going to take Ricochet next. The +1 skill chain is very important for this build. You don't want more than that, and you don't want less than that. Because the way Shield Throw works is when you throw the shield, that's not Shield Throw, the shield's going to explode on the first enemy it hits. It's going to deal an initial damage to that first mob, but the shards are not going to hit it. So what you want to have happen is you want it to chain once and explode behind the more powerful mob, shotgunning it with the shards. And since we have the +5 additional shards, it's more of a shotgun effect. Lastly, we're going to take Fast and Deadly. Powerful Precision and Rupture both seem good, but in reality they just don't give you as much as Fast and Deadly. We are getting Pierce from Poacher's Aim instead, simply because having a jewel that does more damage than this would cost an insane amount of money, and you don't really need the extra Pierce. +1 Pierce is more than enough. Now for starting off on the tree, don't need to worry too much about these. We're going to go straight down to these Evasion and Life notes, take all of those. We're going to path up to Heart of Oak for max life and stun avoidance. We're going to take Precise Interception for the extra defenses from the shield. And this is a really important thing. All of our armor is going to come from the shield and these incredibly OP nodes that massively boost the armor on the shield. So we're going to take Weapon Artistry, again, another shield node. 2% additional block chance there, attack speed, fizz damage. And take this node if you have the points for it. If not, skip it for now. I'm going to come over here, grab Herbalism for life. And then we're going to come into the key part of the build right here, Winter Spirit. These 2 nodes right here give us another 40% fizz to cold conversion. That puts us up to 90%. With that much cold conversion, you don't need to worry about physical or flex maps. You're not going to take very much damage from that. In fact, you won't even notice it. So after that, we're not going to take Arrow Dancing. We're instead going to go to Primeval Force. We're not going to need this, and you'll see later when I show you a map run. Thick Skin, grab all of these life nodes. Going to come down here, Point Blank. It's a range build, so take Point Blank. 50% more damage. Not really worth skipping that. Going to grab our first jewel socket here. Gives us 16% increased evasion getting that. I guess for jewels, you're mainly going to want to look at damage, life, and attack speed if you can get it. This one ideally should have more life, but I haven't gotten around to buying another one. We're going to take life and mana leech. The main point of this is just for the mana leech. We have a lot of life leech from other methods. It's Promise, a big one. But you're going to want that because otherwise you're going to have mana issues. Shield Throw does cost 32, and I'm using fairly cheap support gems for it. So it's a fairly expensive mana cost skill. And we're going to go over here to Cloth and Chain. We're going to get all res, increased evasion, and armor. Since we're a hybrid build, we want to get both of those up as much as possible. And we're going to take Savagery, +1 maximum frenzy charges for the aspect of the cat and Feral's Fur. And get this frenzy charge duration so the ticking down of the charges isn't quite as annoying. Retaliation, into this big shield wheel here. Massive amount of damage for the shield and increased defenses. Golem's Blood, life regen, max life. And our second jewel socket here. This one I have all res on. I didn't quite meet the cap of resistances until just recently, so I've left that on. We will then path through this shield node, Defiance here. More defenses from shield, more damage. We're going to take Master of Arena, because that's the only way out of the shield wheel. I'm going to go through Bravery, more evasion, armor, and life. Art of the Gladiator, attack speed, accuracy. Accuracy is going to be a big thing since we're not taking Resolute Technique, but once we get through all the tree, we'll see we actually have a lot of innate accuracy, and you're not going to need pretty much any on your gear. Fury Bolts, this is a heavy amount of damage. No reason not to take that. Next, we're going to path through to these life nodes here. Grab all the life nodes. All the life, always. Our third jewel slot here. Again, damage, attack speed, life. Pretty self-explanatory. Berserking for the heavy attack speed here. Whole life wheel. Grab all of that life. Ignore this Path of the Warrior. It's not very much damage. We're going to path all the way up to this jewel, Poacher's Aim. This will give us all the pierce we need for the build. We'll take Quick Recovery for max life and mana regen. And finally, LE Overload. This is another key part of the builds. 40% more elemental damage, and we'll pretty much always have crit in the past 8 seconds since we have 3 power charges virtually always up. And that is pretty much the entire tree. So, without further ado, let's get into some maps.
I'm not up to that just yet.
Chaos Orb.
Easy.
That stretches the sanity of the mind.
Lastly, I'm going to show you guys the stats I have. Let's see, spectral shield throw. She stats 204k without aspect of the cat running. Somehow that got turned off. So imagine that run had a lot more damage than it did. Yeah, 266k with all the buffs running, cat's agility and 4 frenzy charges. It's obviously without flash popped. Offhand chance to hit, 92%. It's not bad, not great. Again, tad bit of accuracy on one of the rings. That would bring that up to like 94. But it's not really a big deal. As you can see, I didn't miss very much. For defensive stats here, we have 102k armor. Or, Christ, 10,200 armor. 53 fizz reductions. Pretty solid for having a mostly evasion build. About 9k evasion, 40% evasion rates. Again, that's higher with Enfeeble, Valgrace, and Cat Stealth. It doesn't actually show the higher percentage because that's all sort of offhand mitigation. Life regen's pretty solid. Res is all capped out. Wise Oak obviously gets its benefit from Taste of Hate. So when I pop Taste of Hate, cold's the highest, so you get the pen from Wise Oak. Cast res, not fantastic. Oh, before I forget, Pantheons, I take Swirl of Aracali for the shock damage mitigation, and the minor one doesn't matter too much. I currently have Soul of Tukahama for farming the Guardians, but you can take Restla, that's pretty solid. Ralakesh for not being blind or maimed, so you can take Shikari for poison immunity. We have 8% avoidance from Thick Skin. Again, it doesn't matter too much because we have Kiara's Determination. The big things are Shock, which we mitigate most of with the Pantheon. And movement speed, 17%. I don't know if I mentioned that, but you'll want at least 15 on the boots, otherwise this build feels super slow when you're not able to shield charge. And there are some maps where shield charge just doesn't work. And one last thing, in your offhands, you want to slot in Blink Arrow or Lightning Warp, whichever you prefer. I'm using Blink Arrow because it only requires 2 links, whereas Lightning Warp requires 4. I'm just using these other 4 slots to level up gems. And this one's actually fully leveled up. Same with that one. Less duration and faster projectiles don't actually affect Blink Arrow, just the faster attacks. And we do get 100% increased cooldown on that, so may as well. Plus it looks pretty cool. So you want to swap in and out of this. For certain maps there will be areas where you'll not be able to reach with shield charge very easily. Just do a quick swap. It does take some getting used to, but it's not too bad once you get the hang of it. And that's about it, I guess. Hope you enjoy this little guide, and maybe you'll enjoy playing Shield Throw after this. Alright, 50 out.